Pop up today about creating custom line types, specifically in this case lines and fills to substitute for some of the what would normally be model elements. A lot of small projects don't actually require us to model everything, and really the rule of thumb is if it shows up more than once it should be modeled, but if you only have one building section, you're not doing framing plans, it might be worth it just to throw them in as 2D. Certainly there are ways to do that just with fills or drafting it in, but if we're talking about a repeating pattern like this, a custom line or fill can be perfect for it. Here I have some drafted elements. These are just 9.5-inch joists, and you can see I have this little tag hanging out here off to the sides of all of these samples. These are all 9.5-inch at 24 on center, at 16 on center, at 12 on center. Here I have some 11 and 7/8 at 16 on center. And I'm just going to go through one of these examples. But I've drafted this out with lines. You can use lines or arcs, lines and arcs, just no polylines. That won't work for this. And I'm just going to select those drafting elements, copy them to the clipboard, Command-C on a Mac. And now when I go to Options and Line Types, I already have a test here that's been set up, but I can go to New and go to my symbol type, and I can call this 9.5-inch TJI at 24 inches on center, and say OK. Paste that into here, and you can see that little dot is actually going to provide the spacing for the next joist. I want the gap to be 0 so that it starts repeating itself. And this is where it gets to be a little less than precise. The dash size is going to determine the scale. I do want to make sure that this is scaling with the model size, and go to 1 for 1 inch for the dash size. And now when I go to place a line, I am going to pick my 9.5-inch TJI line type, and you can see I get that line type coming in right there. And again, this is where it becomes a little imprecise. You can see that's actually 18 inches, give or take. But if I go to Options, Line Types, and this is supposed to be 9.5 inches, that means that I probably want this to be, first of all, I need this to be with the paper size so that it stays consistent. And then I want this to be about half, a little more than half of what it is right now. So coming back in, this is, it's always a bit of guess and check. There's no way to say this is 9.5 inches tall or wide or whatever that width is. But I want it to be a little more than half, so let's call this 5/8 of an inch. 0.625 is 5/8 of an inch. And then when we say OK, that scales down. We should see that come in closer. That's about 11 inches now, so not quite small enough. Let's go back and go back to our line types, and we'll call this 0.55 maybe. And looking at that scale, that's getting closer, maybe a little less. But it is scaling proportionally, so it should have the spacing right once I get the height right. So 0.52. Gets me to about 9.5 there. And checking the width on this, the spacing comes to about 2 feet. You can always reverse the line orientation to get it to rotate around to get the line at the top, and then you could basically just draw this line in section to show those joists. Now this isn't an exact precise method for putting in joists. As you can see, it's just a lot of guess and check, but putting this over the top of a floor system, really if it's just to show joist direction or maybe like the number of bays across a floor system, it's close enough. If you need to be more precise than that, again, the best method is obviously to model those floor joists. Now we can also use this as a fill type. So if I grab these and copy those and go to Options and Fill Types, I can create a new symbol fill, and we'll call this again 9.5-inch TJI at 24 inches on center. And just like with the lines, I can then paste this in here. And zooming out, you could see that having that extra little dot means that this is going to tile itself properly so that the left-hand edge of the pattern has a joist on it. and this is slightly more precise than the line types, and it allows me to actually apply this to a building material or directly to a slab if I wanted, although then it would appear that the joists are cut going both directions. So it really only works if you're cutting sections only perpendicular to the floor system. But it is a good system for just quickly throwing in a drafting fill, maybe using this for details or something like that. Again, the model elements, if it's going to be modeled, you really should take the time to model it. I can make this a little bit more identifiable by giving it an actual preview symbol here. This is not exactly for, it's not intended to be any kind of usable functioning view. It's just to show the little thumbnail of which fill is being used there. Anyway, now when I say OK, I come into my fill tool, select the drafting fill, and when I find my 9.5-inch TJIs and draft out that fill, you can see right here that fill should actually be scaled properly. Unlike the lines, it's a little more precise. So it's 9.5 inches tall, and on center we're looking at about 2 feet on center. And I can, with the fill, I can actually define where this fill starts. So I could say that we're starting it right here in this corner. Maybe offset it just a little bit from the edge so that I can actually see that fill. And then if we offset this up 9.5 inches and split this, then I've got a nice fill showing my joist spacing. And again, that can be stretched and add as many joists as need to be added for that bay. Again, this isn't the ideal solution for modeling or being precise because of things like this repeating pattern, and also just for locating and coordinating. It's not great for modeling, but it might be sufficient for drawing details. So that's creating custom fills and custom line types, specifically with regard to generating TGI joists for drawing in details. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.